Here we are in the Spring Mountains, just west of Las Vegas. It's a biodiversity hotspot in the United States of America, comprising elevational gradient from 2,000 feet all the way up to 12,000 feet, and following life zones from the Mojave Desert up to the subalpine. We're going to go to the top of Mount Charleston back there. There's a European-style ski village and a very busy road at the head of the valley there. And we're going to bypass all that stuff through natural habitat. I think this is the first time we've run into a truly upper montane element together. Cercocarpus ledifolius everywhere here suddenly. Look at it more closely together and talk about it a lot in the future, since it's common in the higher mountains of the state, but it's unique for Clark County, that's for sure. Massive Quercus gambelii. Someone running away. A muley. Okay, area no longer resembles a European ski village. We can feel firmly in the Great Basin here, even though we're technically in the Colorado River drainage. Hate to break it to you, but every good adventure these days requires some form of at least a short road walk. Have all the race cars flying up and down here, but the police car just drove by me 3 times within 10 minutes, and I'm the only person out here. So let's see if there's a fourth. The trailhead's right around the corner. It's quite a bit of infrastructure out there. I was supposed to be on my way to Denali yesterday due to the pandemic, as well as due to the death of Shaky. I find myself headed to the Arctic in a different sense, that of rising in elevation 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet, which is analogous to driving hundreds of miles, or otherwise traveling or ambulating hundreds of miles northwards for thousands of feet. So the forest's going to get wetter, trees are going to get bigger, change in species composition as we attain greater heights into tomorrow. I've never seen that before. We're not in the Mojave anymore. Here in a mixed conifer forest in the Spring Mountains. Got Abies concolor right here. First species of fir we've seen together. Look at those leaves, they're attached singly. Needle-like leaves attached singly. They're soft and flat. Brings us to a fir rather than a spruce. Spruce wouldn't have upright flat needles like that are soft to the touch. Obviously not Pinus monophila either. If we could see a cone, I could explain a little bit better why. That's a pedicularis developing in the understory. This side's not doing too well. There's bristlecone and limber pines here too. We'll be getting to know them. Very important components of Great Basin and upper elevation Mojave desert elements. I do not see any fir cones. They tend to be brittle and break apart, so keep looking for those as I ascend. Here we got first Pinus flexilis, limber pine. Got to know this species quite well in my work in the Rocky Mountains. In previous life, got some big cones there. No bristles on the tips, distinguishing them in part from bristlecone pine. And the common name actually kind of fits this time because they are so limber. Let's try to do this. It's a little bit tough with one hand, huh? There we go. Tied it in a knot without breaking it. Limber pine, everyone. With the limbers and the bristlecones, no matter where you are in the western U.S., no matter what species of bristlecone for that matter, there at least two I'm familiar with. They tend to like these barren, rocky high slopes here, like this. Screes. Throw in a little talus, throw in a little sand, doesn't matter. The more barren and high elevation, the better though. Holds true in the Rocky Mountains, holds true in the Great Basin, holds true here in the unique Spring Mountains. Oh, that's interesting. Up there on Mummy Mountain, I think it might be called. Maybe seeing some aspen trees in Clark County, which I've never seen before. See that patch of green there amongst all the mixed conifers? I do think those are aspens. Isn't this weird? We've got a relative of Salvia dorii right here. It's a dwarf shrub in the bristlecone, limber pine, Abies forest, etc. Blanking on the name of this thing right now, but it doesn't have a massive distribution. Well, you got the dwarf phlox here. A dwarf they're of some sort coming up. Jeez. Stuff's crazy out here. Even the castellias and abronias are tiny. Doubt that came out very well, but quite a large bee for such tiny gooseberries. It is sprinkling a little bit, not enough to make me put on a rain jacket by any means, especially because it's rather warm out. Doubt it's raining down in the desert, but it's nice. First time in a month and a half at least I felt rain hit my body in this peaceful forest. We're about to walk through a pretty badass bristlecone forest, I believe. So the bristlecones tend to have the torn open, sometimes even non-existent barks. There must be some strip of cork cambium running up to the top where the leaves are coming out there, for example, for the tree to be alive, but in contrast with the limber pines, which don't really do that as much. You can see the cone differences there too. No bristle, so they're both 5-leaved pines, but I'll have to find a bristle later. And there's the bristles. The tiny astragalus while we're at it. Seems like quite a few of the day hikers were turning off to a summit called Fletcher Peak back there, so I might not see anyone for a while now. Till the trail suddenly got a lot narrower and less used, at least. That must be Fletch right there, as a matter of fact. I think even in the relatively biologically well-known Spring Mountains that there are quite a few places yet where no botanist has yet been. Oh, ponderosa pine suddenly in the limber bristlecone pine forest. Interesting. Pretty tall. This time being on trails, it's really a nice change. You can just move along without worrying about hardly anything. It's not like there's rattlesnakes up here. Probably some cougars, but oh well, they're everywhere. Across the Americas. Can't just walk around worrying about them. No bears here, I don't think. I don't really worry about black bears in any case. Always get that question, aren't you scared of wildlife? Well, the only truly scary wildlife are kind of crazy humans. When it comes down to it, yeah, humans are a lot more dangerous than any wild animals, especially these days and especially in North America. If we're in grizzly country, it's a different story. I don't sleep with my food up there, for example. Interesting. Maybe there's some far northern corners of Nevada near Idaho where bears might occur. I'll have to go look at those parts and see if there's scat on the trails and such. Anyway, back to how nice this is. Pack is light. Geez, I mean, compared to all the lower Mojave stuff we've done, this is downright relaxing. This Place is really magnificent. It's AB's there again. And its unique stature and quality of being a desert sky island with an immense elevational gradient has given rise to, depending on whose taxonomy you're following, 1 to several dozen endemic plant species, meaning they occur nowhere else in the world outside of the Spring Mountains. Regardless of the taxonomic situation, there's evolution active here. Probably a lot of extinction recently too, when that was just a little bit colder up there and more alpine. Probably would have been some southern Rocky Mountains and more Arctic alpine affinities up there for that matter. Maybe we'll see some regardless, I'm not sure about that yet. There's also endemic animals though, which is pretty cool. So something for everyone. Sure, it's endemic lineages of every other taxon you can think of. Those are typically the two that people notice. Probably endemic fungi, lichens, you know, protists, who knows. Anyway, there's something here for everyone, whether you're in Nevada, California, Arizona, or anywhere in the world who may even be visiting Las Vegas. This is a world-class destination. Spring Mountains and Mount Charleston up there. Convinced myself I'm back home in the Rocky Mountains right now, between aspens, ponderosa pines, spruces, firs, limber pines, bristlecone pines, though different species, gooseberries. Back home in the San Juans, I could tell myself. Look at that, Cave Spring. It's a hole in the chalk rock. It's named, so maybe it's perennial. It's green mosses here. It's quite cold, presumably quite fresh, and no pollution above it. It's seeping right out of Mummy Mountain. Readjust. Well, that tells you everything you need to know about the resilience of the gooseberry, the resilience of the genus Ribes. Can literally grow anywhere. Wonder if this is the endemic thistle to the Spring Mountains, Cirsium cloakii, after Ira Cloakey, who is an early collector in the region. Quite abundant on these high screes. Got Verbascum thapsus, the dreaded Verbascum thapsus, threatening to take over native thistle habitat. They both doing well in bare rock slopes, so it's really only one way to do away with these. Jeez. It's gonna be tough. Usually they come out easier, but kind of small right now. The bigger ones come out in a pinch. But gonna need some help. I think a lot of you probably know where this place is. Please, let's cull the mullions every time we come by here, and we can help save the native cerciums and such. Got a lot of work to do. Well, there's the block representing the summit, the Spring Mountains, and also represents the immediate destination. I'll certainly be there before nightfall. We'll be camping somewhere along that ridge. In some trees most likely, because I imagine it could be quite windy up there. So, hier gibt's Schnee. Wie wunderbar. It's kind of still early spring on these snowy exposures, so we'll definitely have to come back here in a more summery time, July for example, maybe even August. Definitely get different stuff flowering throughout the summer up here, I'd say. Which makes it pretty interesting to come back. As if the scenery weren't enough. It's dominated by flowering plants as the lower deserts are. This place, in contrast, these elevations up here, certainly dominated by the cone-bearing plants, and specifically bristlecone pine, Pinus longeva. That part of the specific epithet there, longeva, refers to its longevity, of course. It's fairly well known that this species of pine is, or comprises, the longest lived individuals of any plant, animal, or any other organism on planet Earth. So we got some famous world-class organisms here in these world-class settings. These magnificent pines are worth seeing just themselves. Now, the oldest individuals don't occur here. I don't know how old they get here. Certainly thousands of years old for the oldest individuals. But there's a tiny portion of the White Mountains that enters Nevada. White Mountains of California harbor the oldest aged individuals. And Pinus longeva can be found across the Great Basin, really. It's not exceptional in its rareness, only in the age of the individuals involved comprising this species. Over 5,000 years old for sure. Probably 6 or 7, although we don't have evidence for that. We probably won't. But if they can make it well past 5, why can't they make it to 6? Why can't they make it even a 7 perhaps? And they're looking girdled all along. And the plant looks dead from the bark and trunk perspective. Getting closer to the summit block. It's around 12,000 feet, I believe. Which means we're above 10,000 feet here in the bristlecone forest. Beautiful day. Some ephemeral sprinkles earlier. Not enough to really get wet. And it's warm and sunny really ever since. Perfect mountaineering conditions. So that's pretty interesting. There's a massive avalanche chute sweeping off that, let's see, northeast face, Mount Charleston. 1 of Wouldn't want to build anything in that. These ledges are a little exciting. I've hiked with tons of people who would be buckling their knees in fright near such ledges, but I find them quite gorgeous and really just improving the trail experience. Get just a little close. Yeah, nice and airy. We're in the block system immediately north of the summit of Charleston. I was wondering from afar how the trail would cope with the blocks, because I could see the trail ascending to the summit, but not how it got there. And it's gonna wrap around the blocks, maybe sometimes precariously. Should be exciting. The trail below are just a little bit more cliffy. Might be a little alarmed at the moment, but it's nothing down there. It's all sloped off. No precipitous falls possible. Snow's probably still soft, which is good. Yep. It's well worn, as you can see. Gonna focus now, but not a big deal. If it were ice, as in, yeah, some of this stuff freezes overnight all year, so if you're here early in the morning or in the evening, maybe impassable, although looks like it's easy to go around. Up there is a little less clear. Alright, got a nice alpine streamlet here. Pretty happy to drink from it. I think it's the nicest stream we've seen so far together, actually. Pure snowmelt, pure joy. Only got one of the most common and widespread plant species across the entire temperate northern hemisphere. Juniperus communis all of a sudden. No cones, but it's what it looks like. Ground-dwelling shrub. Quite variable size. Find it in Russia, you can find it in Sweden. You can find it in Canada. You can find it here in Nevada. Alright? Lots of other places. Looks like we just breached what serves as a tree line in these parts. See the crumholts of the bristlecones there. But one day in the near future, I mean, those encroaching bristlecones are going to go right up to the top there. There will be no pseudo-alpine habitat, as I think they call it here, remaining. Pseudo-alpine because there's none of the lineages you would expect here of a true alpine environment, which tends to be quite a bit wetter. But there's nonetheless compact cushion-like vegetation everywhere. Draba, for example. So in that sense, it does kind of fakely replicate alpineness. Here we are on the summit, a little bit breezy. Got the ski village down there, starting to go into darkness. Probably a pretty cool little party town if it's not idea. Check it out someday. The American flag on the summit of Mount Charleston. Clearly not an indigenous name, so I guess it's appropriate. Some weather station infrastructure, and that's about it. Vegetation-wise, it's only a few bunch grasses here and there that can tolerate the extremities of life up here. Not tolerate, I mean that thing's well adapted to life up here. Nothing else can really tolerate it. Let's see, get some social commentary perhaps, I don't know. One love. Nevada, a world within, a state apart, okay. In-N-Out hamburgers, still around. Beyond the Hill, Society's infection, okay. Lots of representation, Ghostbusters even. Wow. Say on an ordinary day from the summit of Mount Charleston, you can see across the Death Valley, Telescope Peak, and up into the Sierra Nevada, which would be quite snowy this time of year still. It's way too hazy out there. I don't know if there's a wildfire or what, which you can always expect to be coming from California, but hopefully next time we'll see the Sierra Nevada up there. It's about time to leave Mount Charleston for now. High range out there is called the Sheep Range. We'll be there someday, certainly. And further north there is all Nevada Test Site, Yucca Mountain, Area 51, all that really amazing and interesting stuff. About this, I wasn't prepared for this nightmare. Never seen a bristlecone forest so devastated. Conditions must have been really bad for all this to flare up. Just look at it all. This is what happens when you're in limestone. If you're from the perspective of flowing water, any other range of this height, stature, etc., holding these late snowfields would be rushing with water through such a gully. Maybe it comes out at the bottom, but characteristic of limestone is that it allows water to go through it really quickly. Meaning it seeps through seeps into the rock without really having a chance to glide along the surface. And that's exactly what we're seeing right here. You can tell water flows through here sometimes, but in early June I'd expect a rushing torrent. Not in limestone. Well, there is one waterfall coming down there. You can hear it. Maybe see it there? But a little bit more incredible is this massive wall here. I have to descend into that canyon. Water in the wall. It's quite gorgeous out here. Aspen forest. There's indeed some water coming down there, but if we look into the drainage, it's completely dry. Again, limestone. Down here in the more temperate elevations, got a lot of ponderosa pines now, rather than bristlecones. Just want to point out that one of the first colonists of any burn area, in terms of horrible invasive weeds, is same species we saw above, Verbascum thapsus mullion. It's too dominant here for me to work on by myself, I'd say. But if ever anyone just feels a compulsion, this one's about the flowers, so of course they never come out filming. They usually come out quite easily. There we go. Give you a little bit of a workout too, pulling it with the roots, huh? So if you can get them before they're flowering, you've done a good service for the whole world. So if you ever see Verbascum thapsus anywhere in the western United States, not just Nevada, it's super common in Colorado as well, do your part, pick a bit of it out, you know, throw it on a dry rock so it roots dry out quickly. Maybe save some native species along the way. Who knows? This is what happens down in the ski village lowlands here. Got paved trails. It's fine for people with wheelchairs, but attracts certain crowds. And lots of campers and picnickers escaping the heat of Las Vegas. Yeah. I think we're done here.